America, I'm Mason Luff.
And I'm Phil Huddy.
Welcome, viewers, to this special edition of Mason News Network. The malicious Ebola virus has plagued West Africa since December 2013, and it only proceeds to accelerate West Africa into a catastrophic state of economic crisis. The Ebola virus is becoming the talk of the town here in America, but truly the economically affected countries are still those of West Africa. As 2015 quickly approaches, the estimated figures of economic downfall are nothing short of shocking.
The three countries that are currently fighting with large amounts of cases of Ebola are Guinea, Sierra Leone, and Liberia. By 2015, it is projected that this virus will cost Guinea $142 million, or 2.3% of the national GDP, Sierra Leone $439 million, or 8.9% of the national GDP, and Liberia $234 million, or 12% of the national GDP.
That's right, Phil. And the cases of Ebola in West Africa are rapidly growing. Currently, Liberia has suffered the most, with a death toll of over 3,800 people. A Centers for Disease Control and Prevention report warned that without any additional interventions, Ebola cases in Liberia and Sierra Leone could rise between 550,000 and 1.4 million. In short, Ebola has sent West Africa on a descent into economic hell.
Here we will cut to some footage to see what African Development Bank Chief Donald Kaberuka and the International Monetary Fund's Communication Director Gary Rice has to say on the subject. The Ebola outbreak is having an acute macroeconomic and social impact on three already fragile countries in West Africa.
Revenues are down, foreign exchange levels are down, markets are not functioning, airlines are not coming in, projects are being canceled, business people have left. That is very, very damaging. Wow. Jerry Rice is a personal friend of mine, and that was some very valuable insight from him.
Yeah, Donald, great guy too, even though he owes me some money.
Anyway, the bills are constantly accumulating as major efforts are put forth to contain the virus. Economically, the worst part about this catastrophe is that these countries had so much potential for economic growth.
That's right. Before Ebola, Sierra Leone was predicted to have a 14% growth in GDP this year. Liberia's economy had been consistently growing by about 10% since the year 2005, and Guinea was being praised for its economic and political reforms.
It's really a shame. Major amounts of inflation have struck these three countries. In Liberia, IMF projects an inflation rate of 13.1% by the year's end, compared to 7.7% before the Ebola outbreak. Due to the enormous lack of supply, prices have skyrocketed on all things. This decrease in supply has been a major player in the cause of inflation.
According to the law of demand, this rise in price should decrease the demand, but the panic buying that this deadly virus has inspired has kept the demand up, causing major inflation and keeping the affected countries far from an equilibrium.
You know, this inflation is constantly fueled by capital flight. Due to the scare factor of the disease, many workers in these three countries are abandoning the fields and factories. The scare factor could cause up to an 80 or 90% of the total economic impact. These factors have taken a very large toll on the major industries of the countries of Guinea, Sierra Leone, and Liberia.
Agriculture being one of those industries. Agriculture is a huge part of all three of these countries' economies. It accounts for 57% of Sierra Leone's GDP, 39% of Liberia's GDP, and 20% of Guinea's GDP. The price of cassava, a staple ingredient in Liberian diets, has inflated by 150%. This one crop is a small example, but it represents massive economic pain that is hitting the countries of West Africa. To expose more about the negative effects of Ebola on agriculture in West Africa, we recently traveled to Guinea and talked to a local farmer named Abubakar. Here's his response on how Ebola is affecting him and his farm.
I am Abubakar. On my farm I grow rice and maize. I have had much trouble growing my crops recently because I am afraid that they will obtain the Ebola virus. I have heard rumors that Ebola is in the water that we farmers use to irrigate our crops. Also, it has become very difficult to transport my crops with the new curfews that we all must follow. The government has not been much help during this critical time. I have had to greatly increase the price of the crops that I do have because I have so little.
While in Guinea, we also talked to a local miner named Obi. In Liberia specifically, mining accounts for about 14% of the economy, and it is a similar proportion in the other countries. International companies, ArcelorMittal, Hummingbird, Chevron, Exxon, and Total have all enacted travel restrictions and have evacuated all non-essential staff from the region. This will lead to a sizable decline in the production. Here's what Obi had to say about how the virus is affecting him and his industry.
The government has closed all of the major boarding crossings, and we also have a new curfew. Many of my co-workers have had to move away from here for reasons I am not very sure of. We are left here understaffed, and the future of the mines here in West Africa are not looking good.
Another industry that has been affected by the Ebola virus in West Africa is the transportation and fuel industry. Restrictions in public transport, internal travel, and trade have all burdened the country's fuel sales. Sales have dropped down by about 35%.
To put the big picture economic effect of Ebola into perspective, it is helpful to compare Ebola to the SARS outbreak of 2002. Nearly 800 people died from the outbreak. There was over $40 billion in economic losses. So far, Ebola has killed over 3 times the amount of people as SARS did. The economic costs of Ebola have the potential to be absolutely enormous.
The possibilities are terrifying. That concludes our special edition of Mason News Network. We took you through what is happening in West Africa. We told you the ominous statistics. We even showed you first-hand accounts of how economically unstable West Africa has become. Keep your eyes and ears open. We will continue to provide updates on the unfortunate economic situations of Liberia, Guinea, and Sierra Leone. From all of us here at MNN, I'm Mason Luff.
And I'm Phil Huddy.
Thank you for watching, and let's hope that Ebola has not chosen America as its next economic victim.
Although, Ebola can't be all that bad. I mean, what's an upside? If you get cured, you get to hug Barack Obama.